Imagine your AI agent went from 95% accuracy to confidently giving you wrong answers. It's giving you answers about discontinued products. It's giving you answers from policies that are outdated. You might think it's a bug. It's actually context rot. And that's what we're here to talk about in today's episode of AI Explainer series. Hi, my name is Meena Ganesh, Senior Product Marketing Manager for AI at Box. I'm here with our CTO, Ben Kus, and let's get into it. Ben, let's start with the basics as always. What is context rot?
So context rot is the phenomenon that the more information that you give to AI, the more you fill up its context window, the more likely it is to give you inaccurate answers because you've given it too much information.
How is it possible to give AI too much information? I thought it was quite smart and could understand and reason everything.
Yeah. So you've heard of this concept of this context window. So
Yeah.
all AI models have a context window, and they are different sizes, and they come in these tokens. So some the newer AI models have a million token context window, 200,000. It's very common to have these bigger windows now. It's like a benefit of the newer models. And you would think that if you told it some information, remember we've talked previously about the idea that AI is very good about not just being trained on a lot of info, but being able to read in real time and then understand. This helps reduce hallucinations. But there's actually a difference between when it reads. So the first tokens it reads versus some of the last tokens it reads, it will be different. And the number of tokens that it can go through, it'll have a different way to recall and be able to understand this data. They call this a needle in the haystack challenge, where let's say that you need to find a needle, like a relevant piece of information. It matters how big the haystack is.
Context windows are growing bigger. That's actually a good thing because now we can give more relevant context to AI and we get more relevant and usable, actionable insights out of AI, right? How can this be a bad thing?
Well, I think there's like this natural analogy to how people think. Okay, so you were telling me previously, what did you do this weekend?
I actually binge watched the entire Lord of the Rings series, all of the movies, extended edition with my nephew.
Wonderful. And so you probably 13, 14 hours of this. So
you know what? It was hours well spent.
Yes.
I stand by it.
So it's relatively fresh in your mind because you just watched it. Okay.
Yeah.
So how old is Bilbo on his birthday? So it's now you just watched this yes. Now you just watched it. So it was you would think that you would remember this, except for you watched an awful lot of Lord of the Rings. And when you're thinking about it, that was some of the first things that come up. It came up in the first.
It was in the first movie. I remember
in the first
whole birthday party about it. So, yeah.
Now, imagine though that you didn't watch all of it, but I asked you after the middle of the first movie, and I said, "How old is Bilbo?" You probably would remember that it was his 111th birthday, his 11st birthday.
Yes. That's what it was.
And so this is an example of actually the more that you're exposed to Lord of the Rings, the more that you kind of forgot some of these facts. This is a very natural thing that happens with people. And in an AI model, the sort of the nerdy version of this is that one of the key insights into what made AI models smart is their ability to have an attention mechanism. And there's this sort of neural network mechanism that it pays attention to certain things. For instance, right now when we're talking, do you know, like, what is the main part of this episode? Like, what's the name of this?
Context rot.
Context rot. Now, we haven't said the word context rot for a long time, but you remembered and we paid attention to the fact that there's context rot.
Yes.
And this is a key part of how AI works. It pays attention to certain key concepts that it deduces are the concepts that are important. But over time, the more and more details that you give it, then the more likely it is to have its attention become diluted and it loses track of certain things. And this is very important when you're doing things like these needle in the haystack problems when you want a specific fact, like how old is Bilbo on his birthday. So now in the world of enterprises, this can actually come into play because you have a challenge if you have very long context, long information, maybe very long documents. Maybe you want to do things like imagine you have like a very long set of project proposals. You have a lot of product data. You have a lot of different types of information you're giving to a model, and you ask it a question. You actually need a control for how much information it has if you want to get the highest accuracy answers.
Okay, I see. So we've talked about RAG in the past. Is that the solution to all this?
Yeah. So one of the things that is really important for like information retrieval systems and asking questions around a bunch of content is to do a first step where you retrieve the right information. This is the retrieval step, the R in RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And one of the reasons you do that is not only because you might have so much data that it doesn't fit in the token window, but even if you did, even if you were able to fit all into a context window, it turns out that if you can ahead of time just get mostly the relevant information. So for instance, in Lord of the Rings, if I just showed you all of the Bilbo scenes, and I just showed them all to you, you'd be able to very quickly pick out that it is he'd be 111. Versus if I showed you the whole movie, you might actually forget by the end of it exactly those details. And so the idea of RAG is to retrieve the most relevant pieces, and then that is important even if it fits into the context window. So that helps for the normal retrieval augmented generation.
Okay.
But as we're thinking more about AI agents, you start to have another set of challenges related to context draw, which is in the enterprise, what is one thing we've talked about that characterizes agents more so than just like a single shot AI?
The fact that it can plan, iterate, break down its task, assign it to different agents.
And to do that, one of the things that it does is it starts to look into multiple pieces of context. It looks up information, it makes a plan, which is another piece of context that it can create, and then it starts to iterate through a lot of different pieces of context to come up with this, to try to accomplish its objective. But as it does that, it has to be careful because it starts to accumulate more and more context. And at some point, you might actually, depending on whoever created the developer of the agent. So in the case of like Box, when we build our agents, we have to worry that we make sure that we don't start to suffer from the downsides of context drop when we create it. As an example, I was talking to a customer recently who wanted to go through and they were looking at clinical studies, and they had all of these different documents that describe a bunch of information about some clinical studies. And they wanted to get all of the key points associated with it. So a naive way to do this would be to just say, well, I've got an AI model. Let me fill up the context window with all of the studies and then ask it to reflect on the idea of the most important points.
I mean, the windows are getting bigger and bigger. Might as well take advantage of them.
But then you now have the problem, which is that maybe the first studies that it looked at and the first few thousand tokens might be different than the last few thousand tokens, in which case you suffer from context draw. So then the way that you fix that with AI agents, whoever's building them, like the way that we build agents at Box, is to make sure that you're doing things like a humans would do, where you have a scratch pad, where you keep track of some key info that is insights that you learned. Maybe after you're done with your insights, you'll go back and review the data again to make sure you haven't missed anything. So those kind of things are how AI agent authors are building agents to then help avoid the challenges of context drop. And meanwhile, the model's getting better. They're less subject to this. But for now, it's something that everybody who uses AI for complex tasks has to worry about.
Wow, Ben. So more isn't always actually better for AI. Great insights on context draw. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of AI Explainer series. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. We'll see you next time.